Menstrual cups and menstrual discs are entirely different products, and as such, they're sized completely differently. Hi and welcome to the Period Nirvana channel. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more period content and reviews. My name is Kim Rosas and I'm a period products expert, and on this channel you're going to find lots of different resources to help you find and succeed with menstrual cups or discs. One of the things I've developed is a menstrual cup quiz on periodnirvana.com, and if you take that quiz, it will point you to the right menstrual cup or disc for you. And if you're in the US, you can support Period Nirvana's educational efforts by shopping on Period.Shop, where you'll find a curated selection of the top quality menstrual cup brands that are out there. While you may have just heard about the concept of menstrual discs, they've actually been around since the 90s. This used to be called a cup, but this is really a cup. And you can see that there are a lot of differences, and that especially relates to how to pick a size of menstrual disc. Thankfully, picking your menstrual disc size is pretty easy, especially if you come from the world of using reusable menstrual cups. Menstrual discs are almost all one size fits most, which is why you'll see a lot of discs that are about the same size. If you've ever seen a Kaya diaphragm or any diaphragm, you'll notice that they look a lot like menstrual discs. And the Kaya is a one size diaphragm, so it again lends a lot of credibility to the idea of menstrual discs being mostly one size fits all. Like one of the first reusable menstrual discs to come out, which was the Ziggy. They also call it a cup, it's not a cup. Or the Nixit, they also call it a cup, it's not a cup. But these are discs, and they're all about the same size. That's because where they go in your body is also about the same size for everyone. They go into an area called the vaginal fornix. This part of the body is like the cathedral ceiling at the top of a very narrow hallway. So when you think of menstrual cups, they stay in place in the very narrow hallway. They don't go into the cathedral ceiling. But if you are putting in a menstrual disc, that is where your menstrual disc sits, in the cathedral ceiling. And again, it's basically the same for almost everyone, with the exception of people with a low cervix, which we're going to talk about. So when you're considering your menstrual disc size, you don't have to ask yourself anything about your pregnancy history or your age or your activity level. Forget all of those questions. Cervix height, this is probably the one thing you need to consider when you are picking your menstrual disc size. If you're watching this, you're brand new to menstrual discs or reusable period products, you probably don't know where your cervix is. I do have a full video, but I'm happy to give you a very quick explainer on how to measure your cervix because it is pretty quick. You just need a finger. It's best to do this on your period, and it's really a good idea to do it on the first and the last day of your cycle if you have enough advance notice and you want to be thorough, because your cervix moves height throughout your cycle. So typically, although not always, it tends to be the lowest at the beginning of your cycle and then go a little bit higher by the end of your cycle. So you want to make sure you know how low it will possibly get when you're picking a new menstrual product. So with a clean finger, insert and feel for the cervix. It's probably going to feel a lot like the tip of your nose. You may be able to detect a little dot or a slit. And just take the finger out once you reach it and touch it, and then measure the length. Then you can look at the cervix measurement guide on Period Nirvana. We have definitions of what's high, average, or low. I wouldn't necessarily go for the knuckle measurement, but I think in the case of discs, it's a little more acceptable. First knuckle, that would be low. Your second knuckle would be average. And if you can fit your finger all the way before you touch your cervix, that is high. So if you are average or high, you're going to work for all of these one size large menstrual discs. And if you're just moderately low, you're still probably a candidate for most of the one size and large discs. Not everyone with a moderately low cervix is going to be able to use a one size or a large menstrual disc, but some do very successfully. When you insert any menstrual disc, regardless of the brand, you're going to do it in the same way, and it doesn't matter what the size is. You're going to insert it and direct it towards the tailbone, and then tuck up the front edge. And that is why it is less dependent on very, very minute differences in diameter like a menstrual cup, because instead of the muscle tone holding it in place, it is tucked behind essentially a shelf. It's locked into place. So those 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, even 5 millimeter differences don't matter in the same way that they'd matter very much so for menstrual cups. There are menstrual discs that come in smaller sizes, and this is for folks who have a lower cervix. The reason being is that you do have less real estate for the disc to go into and tuck behind that pubic bone because your cervix is sitting lower. So you need something with less of a diameter so it has the space to tuck. That is compared to trying to fit a larger disc behind the pubic bone. When you have a lower cervix, you have all this extra material that might not have the space to tuck, and so a few things can happen. One is that you use one of these larger one-size discs, you insert it and it just won't tuck. It continually sits low in the vaginal canal, meaning it's going to leak, it's going to feel like it's coming out of you. It's just not going to be a good experience. If you don't know what auto dumping is, which I'm going to discuss, I have an entire video on it. A quick version is that when you go to the bathroom, some of the contents of the discs spill out automatically, and in the best case scenario, the one you want, the disc goes right back into place. The other thing could happen if it's just slightly too large is it could successfully tuck when you have a lower cervix, but you might find it comes out of place a lot easier, especially when you go to the bathroom during an auto dumping situation. And it does seem like people who use a one-size disc with a lower cervix, and I say lower cervix, I mean like really quite low, when they do auto dump, if they're successful in wearing a disc every other part of the day, they are finding that it comes untucked and they usually have to retuck it versus someone who wears a one-size disc that fits them well or any size disc that fits them well. When they auto dump, it most often goes back into place. So how do you know if your menstrual disc that you're using currently is the right size for you? It's a matter of comfort and it's a matter of does it leak or not. So in the comfort department, you're far less likely to feel discomfort or bladder pressure from a menstrual disc, but that's not to say it doesn't happen for people. Sometimes if a disc is too large, you can feel a little bit of pressure from the rim when it's inside you, or you can feel a little bit of bladder pressure. And there are a few options. You can look for a less firm disc, or you can look for a smaller diameter disc. Either one of those is likely to help you out with that situation. Now, if you're experiencing leaks from your menstrual disc and you suspect it might be about the size, you want to decide, is it that your disc that you're using is too large or is it too small? If a disc's diameter is too large, it's going to find a way to pop out of place from behind that pubic bone because it's almost like a tightly wound spring, and certain movements are going to let it slip out of place because it was barely fitting behind that pubic bone in the first place. If that's the case for you and you're looking at your disc thinking, I think it's too large, and that's something really only you can decide, I can't really help you with that, then you want to size down to a smaller diameter disc. If your disc is too small and it is finding a way to just slip because it doesn't fully tuck behind the pubic bone, it has a lot more freedom to move because it's not filling the space it's supposed to fill, then you need a larger diameter disc. And again, it's really going to be context clues for you to decide if your disc is too small or too large and you need to size up or you need to size down. So you're just going to have to look at the disc you're using and look at the available options and say, is this disc smaller than most? Is this disc larger than most? And then go down or go up. And one of the resources that I have available on Period Nirvana is a sortable chart, which has just about every disc in the world listed. And you can sort by diameter and compare all those options. We do have now a much larger selection of reusable discs in general. We have a lot of one-size options, but we're also seeing more brands release short cervix height. They will call them short in the case of Luma. Salt calls theirs a small. Some of the other brands call theirs a small, and that is just their smaller diameter option. So very low cervix to low cervix, a short or a medium menstrual disc. One thing to note about picking your menstrual disc that's not related to the size of diameter, but it is related to cervix height, is removing your disc. Because the disc is going to tuck into place, it's a lot easier to get something to go up than it is to be able to reach it and bring it down when you have a high cervix. And because you essentially just push it into nowhere when you insert your menstrual disc, people with a high cervix have often struggled with being able to remove their disc. There are 2 available disc brand options when you have a high cervix and you're nervous about being able to reach it to remove. One that I am, of course, partial to is the Hello disc. You can wear it with the tab dropped, So it's almost like a looped tampon string, and since it doesn't have suction, you can just grab it to remove it. The other option is the Luma High. It has a string that's attached to the rim. You would let this drape down into your vaginal canal, and you can trim it if you would like, and you can use this to pull it and remove it. That way, again, you don't lose it in your high cathedral ceiling. So it is a unique problem if you have a high cervix and you wear discs, but those are probably your two best options. There is one interesting thing about using menstrual discs compared to menstrual cups when it comes to deciding what size fits you. And that is the option of disposable discs, which are available if you live anywhere in the US. You can probably go to a store and find a box of either Instead soft discs or Flex. Totally understand that buying a reusable menstrual disc that costs $30 or $40, or even some of these cost $45, is a one-time purchase that you might not be willing to make without understanding how it works. With menstrual cups, there are no disposable cups where you can see if you like the concept or if it fits you well. With disposable discs, there are a few things to keep in mind if you are going to try one first before deciding you want to use a reusable disc. One is that these are far firmer, so they're a different experience for comfort. They're a different insertion experience. Some people prefer the firmness for insertion, some people don't. Some people prefer the firmness for comfort and fit, some people don't. So your experience with a disposable kind of like sharp-edged polymer menstrual disc is not directly going to translate to a reusable disc, which is going to have rounder edges. Is actually Flex disposable, Flex reusable, more rounded edges. It is slightly softer. It is a different experience, but you can see that it does give you an idea of if this is even going to tuck into place for you. So you can experience inserting a disc, tucking it, and seeing if it stays in place for you. Again, the firmness and some of the attributes of a disposable are different in either a good way or a bad way for reusable, but it is a way for you to decide if you fit one of these larger discs. This disc here is 69 millimeters in diameter, and this Flex reusable is 69 millimeters diameter. Most of these other discs are very similar. Hello disc is 68 in diameter. Nixit is 70 millimeters, so it's just slightly larger. If you try a Flex disposable or a soft disc disposable and it fits you well, chances are basically any of these one-size discs are going to fit and stay tucked behind your pubic bone. If you find that disposables are more messy than you would like, just know that 1, practice helps. 2, there are reusables that have different ways to help you remove it with less or no mess. The Core disc, the Salt disc, the Luma, and the Hello disc. All of these have assistance with a notch or a string or a loop where you can remove it with less or no mess. So yes, high cervix, one size large, low cervix, small or medium, somewhere in the smaller diameter, high cervix, somewhere in the larger diameter. It's pretty easy. It's too easy, in fact. It seems like a trick. After being someone who uses menstrual cups, you're probably like, it's a trap. It's too easy. It really is actually that easy. That's it for today's video. Thanks for being here. If you haven't yet, subscribe to Period Nirvana and follow me on social media at Period Nirvana on Instagram, on TikTok, because maybe I'll have a TikTok account when you're watching this. Maybe I'll be banned. I keep getting taken off the platform for period education videos. Or you can join the group on Facebook, Period Nirvana Community, where we have lots of members who are there to help you troubleshoot and decide and find a product that's going to work for you with a little more guidance. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. In the vaginal. It does not apply the same pressure. Menstrual test until it. And if you're in the US, stop by Period.Shop. And if you're in the US, don't forget to shop at Period.